So I wanted to just put this video together because I've had some people on some of the live streams that I've been doing say I feel like my playing is in a rut, or how do I improve, or these sorts of questions, or what do I do when I'm feeling down about my playing or whatever. And I wanted to kind of suggest that these are kind of normal feelings for any musician, probably. And I think the reason is that it's pretty much a lifetime journey, music anyway, and trying to kind of master an instrument. But there's a few kind of pointers that I would suggest, and other ways of thinking, and some little ideas that I thought I might share with you that might help in some way. So the first point to make is that probably any musician that you've seen, even the very best ones, I think if you spoke to them about things that they'd just done, like a gig or something, a lot of them would probably have feelings that were different to what yours were about how they performed. So typically I think a lot of musicians will feel more negatively about a performance than the person who just watched them. I think that's just the nature of what happens when you practice a lot, or any amount really, is that the more you practice, the more you notice when things aren't exactly as intended or aren't perfect, and the more obvious mistakes are as they jump out at you. And I guess certainly for me, a lot of my practice has been about trying to avoid those mistakes up until very recently anyway. Probably what's more important is to recover from things that don't go exactly as planned, and to recognise that the perfection thing, I did a video on this probably last week or something, the perfection as like a measurable kind of consistent thing is not really achievable. If you're doing any amount of playing, especially if it's improvised, over sort of 5-10 minute periods, you're going to start to see that there's not really anyone who can avoid mistakes forever. So it's not so much, I think that helps you to kind of put in perspective that everyone is in that same kind of journey of feeling a way about their playing, and to not let that kind of stop you too much. We all have days where we feel like our fingers don't work. We all have days where things don't go exactly as we planned. It's about just working through those, and I think you'll find that as time goes by you have less of those days and more days where things start to work better, and there's a little less effort going into things. It feels like things are coming a little bit more naturally, which I guess is that feeling that we're striving for most of the time. So when it comes to being stuck in a rut, as I think it's quite a common phrase amongst guitarists, to me that's got this idea that you've got like an end goal, somewhere that you're travelling towards, and that you've got a feeling that right now that you're not moving toward that goal, you're treading the same kind of territory over and over and over again. And for me that's a problem of not enjoying the moment. So I would suggest that the end goal is completely unknown, and what you're working towards, for me, my goal is to try and enjoy each moment of music that I can create or whatever more, and to make each moment that I'm playing better in some way. So I don't have these long-term goals that I particularly focus on. My goals are kind of short-term and smaller, and definitely less focused than you might think some players and hear that some players have in mind. A lot of the goals that I might set would be to, learn a tune a week and try and make that as musical as I can. Try and inject some new things into it perhaps, but the main goal is to just try and enjoy and focus on making that particular piece of music work to a level where I can improvise it or around it at the end of the week and have it be a moment I can kind of enjoy and I can look back on and go, that was how I was playing right then. And then especially in the gig format, so I've relatively recently started doing solo guitar gigs. In that situation, it's even more important to try and keep the mindset that you're not trying to hold on to each mistake that occurs, if they do, or build up that pressure of, oh, there might be a mistake coming. You're just trying to live in each kind of musical moment and be present within that, whatever that means. But basically it means not stressing too much about whether everything is perfect, and just try to stay out of your head too much and just try and enjoy the sounds that are coming out of your instrument as much as you can. So if you're feeling like you're stuck in a rut, another way that I would think about it is that in your head you've got this way that the guitar should sound when you're playing it, or these things that you want to play, but there's some sort of blockage between what your fingers are able to do, or your theory or knowledge is able to execute, and what your brain is thinking you want to hear. So if I'm particularly having a day where nothing's working particularly well, I think it's important to kind of strip back and play something simple. So that can be anything, but what I like to do is play melodies of pop songs and simple stuff, and focus just on playing the melodies, and try and, if you feel like, okay, well, I'm going to step outside the melody for a bit, do so, but just try and enjoy the moment of playing that piece of music, whatever it happens to be. Simple is good, and things that you can just play without thinking too hard. So any sort of melody. Anything's fine to play for this sort of stuff. The goal really is to have a melody that your head and ears and mind can hold and remember, very familiarly what is going on, and to try and connect this to your hands. So that's the idea of keeping it simple, so that it's not something that you're going to have to think about and play over and over again and work out. It's something that is going to quickly get you to have a feeling of linking the mind and what you're intending to happen with what actually happens. So that's one suggestion. Another suggestion is to, if that first suggestion would be one that I definitely would recommend and say try doing that first, and the more you do it, the more I think that will be something that anchors you back to a feeling of more connectedness with the instrument. I think the next thing I might suggest is, we hear, especially in the jazz world, about how important transcribing is, But realistically, if you're going to transcribe a whole solo, or a whole chorus of a solo, it can take literally days, weeks to actually get the thing transcribed and to a level where you can play it fluently. So I think it's quite a daunting thing to think about. So one of the approaches that I like to do is just take little snippets of a lick or snippets of a solo, and you can sort of do this in 10, 15, 20 minute periods of time. So for instance, I did this with Charlie Parker Cherokee. There was a bunch of licks in there that I was hearing, so I'd take them, I'd listen to the Cherokee, slow it down on YouTube, and just pick out licks one at a time and learn them. And the feeling, so that would take maybe 5-10 minutes to work out and play, and then you come back to it the next day and it's slightly easier again. That gives you a feeling of some sort of small achievement each day. I think that's a really positive thing to try doing. And then one other thing, which is kind of what I've started doing with the 7 chords idea, is to try and learn new things that you can apply right away, and not big things. Maybe it's even just 1 chord voicing. Not that one, because that seems a bit naff. I don't know if it's the same for you, but for me, I find that I can only retain so much information at one time, and so to learn one small thing at a time is actually how I'm able to build up a greater knowledge of whatever and new stuff. So, it wasn't suddenly one day that I could just learn all chords. It's taken years and years and years of building 1 or 2 things at a time. And that's how I'll continue to add new chords and new playing stuff and new tunes to my repertoire. Generally, it's not going to be in massive chunks, it's going to be little small increments of new stuff. So use channels like mine if you can find some inspiration to learn one small thing at a time. And it's okay to just take little small steps in a direction. It's quite a slow process sometimes, it feels like guitar, but for me what's important is that I'm adding little things here and there, adding new tunes each week that I can play, so that I'm increasing my ability to play tunes and make music on the guitar, and then most importantly trying to enjoy each moment that I'm spending on the instrument. And if for any reason I get frustrated with what I'm trying to play which isn't happening, isn't coming off, either slow everything down, so if you are specifically working on a part that's you're aiming to get fast or whatever, slow things down and slowly work up speed. But if it's just that you're trying to play fast one day or whatever's happening and it's not working, don't be afraid to just really simplify things and just play a simple melody from a song that you've heard for years and years. And I think that's a way to try and reconnect with your instrument and try and get the hand-mind link back. That's my suggestions for what I think could fix you feeling like you're in a rut. To me, it's more of a mental feeling than anything else. And I think it's long-term thinking with a longer goal in mind. I think it's probably worth just thinking about how you're going to enjoy the moment that you're on the guitar right now. Those are just some ideas. If you like this sort of video, do the old like and subscribe thing. There's loads of stuff on my channel now, and people keep commenting with new ideas about stuff that I could do. I'm going to try and do some more live streams, just because I think there's some people get something useful out of that. But yeah, if you want to like and subscribe, that'd be super helpful, and stay safe, and see you soon.